All right, folks, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Legal Aid of North Carolina's free clinic on employee rights. This clinic explains your rights as an employee under North Carolina and federal law, with a particular emphasis on the impact of the COVID-19 emergency. The clinic will explain what assistance is available for those who have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 and how to apply for that assistance. Our presenter today is attorney John Keller. John Keller is a supervising attorney with Legal Aid of North Carolina's Wilson office. He has been an attorney with Legal Aid since 1987. He is the co-chair of Legal Aid's Employment Task Force and our Employment Practice Group. He received his bachelor's from Williams College in 1984 and his JD from Duke University Law School in 1987. At the end of the presentation, Attorney Keller will be available to answer general questions through the chat or question and answer feature if you've joined us on Zoom, or you can post a comment if you are watching on Facebook Live, and we will present those questions to the attorney. Please keep those questions as general as possible, as we are unable to provide you with legal advice specific to the facts of your case. Thank you for attending today's clinic. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Attorney Keller. Are you there?
Yes.
All right, take it away.
Okay.
Thank you for attending today's clinic.
And is the video working correctly now, Blaine?
It is indeed.
All right, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining Legal Aid's Employee Rights Clinic. As Blaine stated, we're going to focus today primarily on unemployment benefits. Many issues have been raised by this COVID-19 pandemic, and I think that's what's on most people's minds right now. Just a couple of preliminary things, just to let you know that Legal Aid of North Carolina is fully operational. Although the courts are closed, except for emergency cases, and although our offices are primarily closed with attorneys working from home, we are still working Monday through Friday. Our helpline, the intake unit, is fielding calls 5 days a week, just like they always did. And so if you've got a legal problem, please don't hesitate to contact a civil legal problem. Please don't hesitate to contact Legal Aid's intake unit and put in an application. Also, I understand at some point folks from out of state may potentially be viewing this video, and just to make clear that my comments are based upon what is happening with unemployment benefits here in North Carolina. When I'm talking about one of the new federal unemployment programs that would apply in any state, I'll try to make that clear, but presume that what I'm talking about is North Carolina specific. All right, well, just as a brief introduction to unemployment benefits, to, I guess, put in context, what is happening with the problems with the unemployment benefit system now. The North Carolina Department of Commerce, its Division of Employment Security, administers North Carolina's unemployment benefit program. The website is DES, as in Division of Employment Security, des.nc.gov. That is the website where you would be putting in your application for benefits. Although there is a phone line, and those phone numbers are on the website right now, trying to get in and put in an application for unemployment benefits, the advice is to still try to do that online. Just as a little bit of context, North Carolina would typically process about 3,000 unemployment claims per week. That would be about 150,000 unemployment claims per year. They are now having received over 800,000 applications just between March and April and early May. At some point, as I mentioned, 3,000 per week, DES was receiving about 1,000 applications per hour. So that explains, if you've been hearing about DES responding that they have been overwhelmed, that really is an understatement. And they have hired hundreds and hundreds of new employees. And unfortunately, new employees do take some time to get trained and to understand the complexity of the unemployment benefit application process. So those things, unfortunately, have all come together to really create a really big backlog and delay for folks who are now unemployed and trying to get into DES to get their unemployment benefits. Briefly, unemployment benefits, they're not paid for by the employee. They are typically paid by a tax that the employer pays on payroll. So the notion that perhaps whenever my job ends, I should get unemployment because I paid into it, that's actually not accurate. The employer's taxes pay for the unemployment benefit system in North Carolina. In North Carolina right now, the maximum benefit per week is $350, and the maximum amount of unemployment benefits, the maximum number of weeks of unemployment benefits is 12 weeks. The CARES Act passed by Congress in effective basically the 1st of April. This created several brand new unemployment programs paid for by federal dollars. And these are the programs that North Carolina's DES has now been struggling to create and to get up and running, so people can begin receiving this additional unemployment benefits passed for indirect response to this pandemic. If you find yourself unemployed because the employer has shut down, even though it may be a shutdown due to COVID, that claim is treated, in a sense, the application is no different than if the employer shut down last year. Now, you're simply out of work because the employer no longer has a job for you. And you just apply for unemployment benefits based on my job ended, it was a layoff. COVID has presented some furloughs where employers temporarily have no work. They do not want to separate you permanently, but they can't give you any work right now. And so people have been told, well, you're going to be put on furlough. Well, the first day that you are on furlough, you are out of work. You have no work, even though you've got the promise of re-employment from the company. You have no work right now. And so a furlough entitles you to apply for unemployment benefits. The governor of North Carolina issued an executive order in March that made clear that if you're unable to come to work because you contracted COVID-19, if you've been isolated or quarantined by doctor's orders because you've come into contact with someone infected by COVID-19, that those are other valid reasons for applying for unemployment benefits. In the past, that might have been treated simply as a quit unrelated to your job, but if it is a COVID-related reason for needing to stay home and not being able to report to work, then you are able to apply for unemployment benefits and state that you are unemployed as a result of COVID-19. Importantly, in North Carolina right now, the governor has also issued some changes in your ongoing eligibility for benefits. And the most important being that the requirement that you have to look for work, the work search. Um, Typically, you must look for work at 3 different places each week and then certify on a weekly basis to DES that you are continuing to look for work, but you remain unemployed. Um, right now, because of COVID and the sheltering in place and the lack of employment opportunities, that work search requirement is no longer in effect. You still have to call in every week and certify that you are still unemployed. And if you picked up any part-time work or made any money, you are supposed to report that. But you're allowed to report that due to COVID-19, that constitutes your work search. That as long as this emergency declaration stays in effect, then the work search requirement to draw regular state unemployment benefits and some of the federal unemployment benefits that I'll talk about in a minute, that work search requirement has been put on hold. Now let's maybe turn our attention now to these new federal benefits that you've been hearing about. That first big one everyone is curious about is that $600 extra payment. This is called PUC, for pandemic unemployment compensation. And PUC is paid on top of any other unemployment benefit that you are receiving. So that's why it has been so frustrating for folks to have their applications remain in a pending status, because it's not simply their regular weekly unemployment amount that they are going to be entitled to, but that also holds up this $600 PUC payment on top of that. You have to be drawing an unemployment benefit either under North Carolina's unemployment program or one of the other federal programs, and then you get that $600 PUC payment on top of that. And it does not matter how much unemployment you're drawing. You could be drawing $1 per week. You could be drawing the maximum $350 per week. No matter what you're drawing, everyone is entitled to then get the $600 PUC payment on top of that. That $600 payment is effective April 1st, and it runs through July 31st. Any application that's been delayed because people have not gotten into the system, or the application got in but it's still pending, your claim will ultimately, if it's approved, it will be approved for the date that you got back in the system, rather than the date they finally get to your claim. And so if you applied on April 15th, it's not until, say, this week that you're finally going to get approval on your claim. You will be approved and paid back through April 15, and that includes your regular unemployment amount plus the $600 payment. The second new federal unemployment program that was created is called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So that goes by PUA. And this is the program that is creating all of the bottlenecks and headaches for North Carolina. Yesterday, I saw the most recent numbers. Over $1 billion of unemployment benefits have been paid out by DES since late March. However, the vast majority of that money has been folks who qualified for just a regular state North Carolina unemployment benefit and that $600 then PUC payment. A very small percentage right now of the $1 billion plus has actually been paid under the PUA program. PUA is brand new. So North Carolina, as in all other 50 states, had to create an application and a decision process to evaluate this PUA application. And so what is PUA? How is it different? Well, your regular unemployment claim is based on the fact that you've been an employee of a company, you get a W-2, you've worked for a certain number of weeks, months, years. The wages that you have made have been tracked, by DES. And then based on your wages, then North Carolina calculates an unemployment benefit amount. And again, the maximum claim in North Carolina is $350. So PUA was created to capture all other kinds of employees who typically do not qualify for a state unemployment claim. And so the most well-known group of these new folks are people who are self-employed and folks who are contract workers. These would be people who get paid with a 1099. And folks that are referred to as gig workers or app-based workers, all these kinds of folks would not ordinarily qualify for an unemployment benefit through North Carolina. They're either self-employed or again, an independent contractor. And these folks typically don't qualify for benefits. And so the PUA program was created to provide unemployment benefits to these two really big groups of workers. Another group of workers that would not qualify under state unemployment benefits would be folks who worked part-time or have had a very sort of incomplete work history over the past year or two. So they paid very few wages. They've been paid very few wages over the past year or two. Part-time workers and people who've been in and out of the job market, they're probably not going to have enough wages built up in the system to generate an unemployment claim. And so these folks are also covered then by PUA. So ordinarily, you've got to be a full-time worker losing the job to generate an unemployment claim. Now, part-time workers are also able to apply if they've lost their part-time job. Even though the program, in a sense, was created and effective in the early part of April, and it wasn't until actually the end of April that North Carolina got their PUA application up and running and were able to take applications. I believe it was April 24 was the first day in North Carolina that people could put in a PUA application. The application is retroactive to January 27. In all likelihood, no one's probably going to get evaluated before March 15, because that was right around March 15 is when in North Carolina declared a state of emergency based on COVID-19. And in order to receive PUA, you must be unemployed because of some COVID-related reason. And for example, I'm just going to tick off a few of the most common reasons for what's considered to be a COVID-related reason. You've been diagnosed, have symptoms, or you're seeking a diagnosis for COVID-19. Someone in your household has been diagnosed with COVID-19. You're needing to provide care for a child or a household member who has COVID-19. You've got to stay at home because your child is not in school or the daycare is closed due to COVID-19, and there's no other options for someone to take care of your child. You were supposed to start a job, and that job got withdrawn because of COVID-19, and therefore now you may have quit one job anticipating a new job. You may have been unemployed but had a job offer. Any pulling back of that job offer because of COVID-19 gives you a basis now to apply for unemployment under the PUA program. And again, if the employer has pulled back hours or has actually shut down because of COVID-19. So those are a laundry list of the different COVID-related reasons why you can find yourself unemployed now and available or eligible to apply for PUA benefits. One thing, if folks have quit their job, then as I indicated, you can quit for certain COVID-related reasons, like you've got COVID, you're taking care of someone who's got COVID, the school has closed, the daycare is closed, you got to stay home with the kids. Importantly, you can't have the opportunity to work from home. If it's possible and the employer allows you to work from home, then you can't apply for unemployment, you've got to work from home. One basis for not being able to quit the job is if you have just a general fear that I might catch COVID if I leave the house. So we're going to talk in a minute about working conditions and how that situation, is really coming to the fore now that the economy is reopening and people are concerned about going back to work. So we'll talk about some workplace safety issues in just a minute. Right now, there are several groups of advocates who are putting together a list of problems that exist with the PUA application process at this time and requesting a meeting with some of the folks that run DES to discuss where we are with the PUA application process. Importantly, the PUA law says that for folks that are self-employed, independent contractors, that it is sufficient when you apply to simply say that. It's called self-attestation. Like, I am certifying that this is my self-employment, this is what I do, and this is how much I make. And under penalty of fraud, and under the penalty of having to pay back any money that you don't deserve, you swear that this information is true, and PUA indicates that information should be sufficient to get your PUA application rolling. Right now, it appears that many folks are having their applications held up because of required proof. Wanting to get, I guess, copies of, ledgers, invoices, bank deposits to prove what kind of wages you made in your self-employment. Any kinds of contracts, bills, invoices that would show that you actually provide some kind of work and you're providing a service to other people and you're getting paid for it. Certainly, folks are going to need that information, but the application is supposed to be taken based upon this, the own sworn I promise type application from the individual and not be put on hold until all that information is gathered. A couple other issues we're running into, and perhaps some people on this in this clinic have encountered this problem. Let's say you had a job it ended in December. You were let go for some type of, say, attendance reason, and you applied, you were disqualified. Now you've got a pending hearing. Our understanding of the PUA law is that your PUA application should still get processed, even though you may have a pending unemployment claim under the regular North Carolina state unemployment process. And it appears right now, again, that's another reason why some PUA applications are being held up. Additionally, folks appear to have had, an unemployment claim from 1 or 2 years ago that for whatever reason, the employee abandoned. Most likely, they found another job before the unemployment process really kicked in, and therefore they abandoned their claim. But at the time they abandoned the claim, there may have been a pending disqualification or a problem with, you failed to call in to report your claim. Those issues are supposed to be sort of cut off and have no impact now on a April or May 2020 PUA application. But it appears that unfortunately, some of these old issues are popping up and they're causing claims to be held back. So we don't have, or I don't have a good answer right now, other than these issues are being brought to the attention of DES. And we hope for swift resolution of those problems. One thing may come up with folks who consider themselves to be an employee of a company. However, they've received a 1099 as an independent contractor. In normal times, most folks would be advised to appeal that independent contractor decision if you really are an employee and you should have been getting a W-2 rather than a 1099. Right now, the advice is it's probably going to be better to simply take the 1099, assuming that the amount of money that it says you earned is accurate, and go through the process as a 1099 independent contractor. If you file an appeal to dispute, I'm not an independent contractor, I'm really an employee, we don't know how many weeks or months that appeal is going to take. And given the overload in the unemployment system right now, just getting sort of easy applications processed, we're suggesting that folks, run with the 1099. There is discussion on a national level that folks who have been sort of incorrectly categorized as a 1099 independent contractor, but nevertheless went through the unemployment process as a 1099 person simply because they needed to get the money quickly, that they're proposing, laws to be written that would allow these people that are going to stick with the 1099 to be able to later on challenge that 1099 determination. Because it could be significant if the company, should be paying, some type of benefits, retirement plans, health care. You're not getting any of that as an independent contractor, but it's a choice that needs to be made whether I need the unemployment now and I'll worry about this independent contractor designation later. The last brand new federal unemployment program that I want to discuss. Again, we've got the PUC, the $600 bonus on top of your unemployment check. The PUA, that's for people that don't qualify for a state unemployment check, but are nevertheless unemployed for those COVID-related reasons. And to make clear, if you get a PUA check, you also get that $600 PUC check on top of that. Then the last program is PEUC, and that is the pandemic extended unemployment benefit compensation. And these are for folks who used up all 12 weeks in their state claim and are going to be granted a 13-week extension on their state claim. Unfortunately, right now, North Carolina has not set up its PEUC extension program. And we really don't have a target date. There have been rumors of late May, shortly before Memorial Day, or right after Memorial Day weekend. But at this point, I don't think any date is firm. We've been advised that folks should put in a PUA application, stating your unemployment, why you're unemployed. And if it turns out that, you used up all 12 weeks of a previous unemployment claim as of January, February, March, and eventually they should pay you the PUA benefit right now, and then go back and switch you into the PEUC program when that gets set up. Again, we don't know the status for folks who are applying because, my unemployment benefits ran out. I just used them all up. I still haven't found a job. I should now qualify for this new PEUC 13-week extension on my 12-week state claim. It's not set up yet. So therefore, I'm applying for PUA to give me some money in the meantime. That's how, again, it should work. We don't really have feedback yet about whether or not that's happening. The PUA, just to switch, I'm sorry to switch back, with the PUA, the smallest PUA check is roughly $132, I believe, or $138. And so if, again, you were a part-time worker with very little wages in the system, so you didn't have a state claim, if you're self-employed, but you really didn't make much money, the minimum amount of PUA that you're going to be paid is in that 138 range. Okay, that covers the three new federal unemployment programs. I guess the biggest issue now, the economy is slowly reopening. Governor Cooper has allowed some retail to reopen at 50% capacity as of this past Monday. So some stores are reopening. In a couple of weeks, North Carolina will consider this phase 2 option and decide whether or not other employers are going to be allowed to reopen. And so it is now creating a big question of, my employer has now called me up and said, come back to work. Either, I was on furlough, I was laid off, either one, the employer has now contacted you to say, I want you to come back to work. And, first of all, if the only reason you don't want to go back to work is that you've been drawing your unemployment check and the $600 PUC payment, and your unemployment plus that $600 PUC is more per week than you would make at your job, unfortunately, that is not a reason to refuse to go back. If you refuse to go back to work because you're basically going to make less money than you would draw on unemployment, then you're going to be eventually disqualified from your unemployment. If you refuse, the employer is going to contact DES, state that you were offered your old job back and you refused it, and that's going to cause DES to stop your unemployment benefits, issue a decision of work refusal. And if the only reason for work refusal was that I'd make less money at my job than I would drawing unemployment, then you're going to lose and your claim's going to be over. Another situation that's now developing is that, again, for companies that have let people go, whether furlough or layoff, some have been receiving this Paycheck Protection money, and folks are being asked to come back And even if folks then have some type of a COVID-related reason for not being at work, whether that person has COVID themselves, taking care of someone in their household who has COVID, they're at home because the kids aren't in school or they aren't in daycare, so they've got to stay home to take care of the kids. The employer can offer some sick leave and a new Family and Medical Leave Act types of paid leave in exchange, well, not in exchange, for you to come back. And again, this 2 weeks of sick leave and this new extended 10 more weeks of a Family and Medical Leave Act, specifically for when your kids are at home, either because of school or daycare closings, and you got to stay home with them. There's new federal laws that give employers money to then pay you to be on sick leave and to be on this extended family medical leave. The sick leave is paid at your current salary to a maximum of about $500, I believe, per week. The Family and Medical Leave Act leave is paid at about 2/3 of your salary. Again, some folks who may be drawing unemployment are going to be drawing more money on unemployment than they would if they were then taking the sick leave or the extended family and medical leave from their employer. And again, those laws all say that you are required to take the leave. You cannot choose the unemployment simply because it's more money than being on that paid sick leave or that paid FMLA leave. Now, let's talk about the situation where you're being called back and you have health and safety concerns. So what do? You can't automatically assume that I can just refuse to go back because, again, refusal of what's called suitable work, presumably your old job was suitable, refusal of suitable work is going to lead to you being cut off and disqualified from your unemployment benefits. So that really begs the question, is your old job still suitable? And if, since being let go or furloughed, and now you're being called back, if you developed any symptoms of COVID-19 yourself, and you've been advised by a medical professional not to return to work, that's one of the good reasons why you can tell your employer, I can't come back. I'm not refusing my job. I simply can't come back because I have COVID or I've got COVID symptoms and a doctor's advised me not to return to the workplace. That is by DES has listed that as one of the valid reasons to be able to say, I can't go back right now and continue to draw unemployment benefits. If you've got someone in your household with COVID-19 and you're caring for that family or household member, that's also a legitimate reason to tell the employer, I cannot come back right now. If you are at high risk for COVID-19, and that specifically is if you're 65 years or older, or if you've got a serious underlying medical condition that there's some compromise to your immune system, you got serious heart conditions, severe obesity, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, and you do kidney dialysis, you've got liver disease. These are some of the categories of health problems that you can then inform your employer, I've got this or that health condition, or alternatively, I'm over 65, and I can't come back because I'm at high risk. That's also a valid reason not to return to work. Again, you've got to be a primary caregiver for a child who's at home because school is closed due to COVID-19 or the daycare facilities closed due to COVID-19. This is going to be it's going to raise some issues as the end of the school year arrives, because after say June 6th or June 8th, whenever your school year was going to normally end, then the kids are home and they're not in school because school would have been over anyway, not because of COVID-19. So people need to keep that in mind, that if you're called back and the callback occurs after school would have already ended, then you can't use, well, my kids are home because school is closed, because it's not related to COVID anymore. That's just because the schools would have been closed. However, if daycares are still closed, then that can still be a valid reason to say I've got to stay home and take care of my kids. I have no other options. Lastly, there's always going to be this gray area of, you believe the workplace is unsafe. You can certainly ask your employer, if you work in a retail store, like, well, am I going to be provided a mask? What are you doing about 6-foot social distancing with all customers that come in the store? Am I going to have a shield at the cash register to protect me while I am ringing up, the charges for the purchase? There are CDC, the Center for Disease Control, CDC guidelines for safe workplaces. You can use those guidelines to ask questions of your employer. If the employer flat out says, like, we don't care about those guidelines, you're probably going to have a pretty strong case to say, well, look, I'm not coming back if you're already telling me that you're not going to provide a workplace that meets the safety recommendations of the CDC. Again, you can't guarantee that there's not going to be an issue on your claim. Except the employer tells DES and then you refuse to come back to work, you're going to have to argue and show DES that you had a valid reason why this job was no longer suitable to go back to work. So all we can suggest, if it's a general safety concern, is to try to pick up some knowledge at the CDC website, maybe North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services website, about what might be some of the typical safety precautions that your type of job should take. Ask the employer if those safety precautions have been put in place, and then make your decision about whether you believe that there's a safety risk to go back to work. Just realize that if you refuse to go back based on your belief it's an unsafe workplace, it could lead to a initial disqualification. Your benefits are going to stop, and you're going to have to go through the hearing process to argue why you had a good reason why the job was not suitable, and your unemployment benefits should be, put back on and paid back for those weeks that you were not receiving unemployment. Let's say you do go back to work, the employer's promised a safe workplace, and now you find out that the workplace is not safe. You should not immediately quit. Put your concerns in writing if you can, whether written down on a piece of paper, texting, emailing, some written documentation where you outline, these are the specific safety concerns that I'm experiencing in my job at your workplace. Tell me how you're going to fix these and when you're going to fix them. And, it's hard to say what a reasonable time to make the fixes are. But the employer will have this a quote reasonable time to make those changes. And then the employer does not make changes, does not respond positively that the changes are going to be done. Then again, it's your call whether or not you're going to have to leave that job. You're going to have to then prove, you quit with good cause. The good cause being that the employer was not providing a safe workplace. But just realize again that it's going to create an issue when you apply for unemployment. It's also possible too, if you've got an unsafe workplace, to contact the North Carolina Department of Labor. They have the Occupational Safety and Health section, OSHA, and perhaps then a complaint can then protect you if you are then terminated in response to making a complaint. That would be illegal. You're protected when you make a valid workplace safety complaint. And perhaps then the Department of Labor might follow up and investigate, and the employer might respond and make the necessary changes from a safety complaint that you filed with the Department of Labor. Again, sort of wrapping things up, if you have gone back to work, but then you've got health issues come up related to COVID-19, or perhaps childcare issues have now resurfaced. Maybe the daycare option then fell through, and now you've got to go back home to take care of your child. Remember that there's the 2-week paid sick leave, and this paid at 2/3 of your pay, this paid Family and Medical Leave Act for childcare. So if you need to take time, then you can ask your employer about the availability of those leave programs. If leave is not provided, then you can certainly consider going back and applying for unemployment benefits. Maybe the last thing I want to comment on this afternoon is students. There's two different groups of students that we're starting to begin to think about and talk to. Some students were offered summer employment, and those summer employment opportunities have now been withdrawn. Under PUA, a student not going to really have any wages built up in the system, not going to be eligible for a regular state unemployment claim. So therefore, that gets their foot in the door under PUA. And one of the criteria for PUA is that you had a job offer that was rescinded or withdrawn because of COVID-19. And if you can demonstrate that your summer job was canceled, then we're encouraging those students to apply for unemployment benefits. Similarly, for students who were just working some type of part-time job while being a full-time student, if those part-time jobs have ended, again, ordinarily you do not qualify for a regular state unemployment claim, but under PUA, it looks like you should qualify. And so, any folks that are completing their, or just maybe have recently completed their semester, but had part-time work that was ended in late March or April or early May because of COVID-19, then those folks should also apply under the PUA program. Just to make clear, I'm sorry, when folks are applying, I keep saying applying for the PUA program, you go on to the North Carolina DES website, just like you're applying for unemployment benefits under the state program. You just apply for benefits under the same link on the website that you would for a regular state claim. And when that claim opens up, there should also be a link that says apply for PUA benefits or put in a PUA application. And so it's all happening at the same application portal on the website. All righty, well, I think that's everything I wanted to say today about where we are in North Carolina with unemployment benefits now. And I'll be glad to try to answer some questions that folks may have.
Okay, so if you are with us on Zoom, there is a chat feature. There's also a question and answer feature. If you're able to use the question and answer feature, that would be best because I can see the questions more easily there, but you can also type them in the chat if you can't find the Q&A. There is also, if you have joined us on Facebook, you can type your question as a comment and I can relay it from there to the attorney. It typically takes a couple of minutes for people to type, so we'll let them do that. And we've got our first couple of questions starting to roll in. So how long can an employer keep your income at a reduced level?
Well, there is no North Carolina or federal law that states an employer must return the employee to their previous wage level, after 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 8 weeks. if you quit your job because of a reduction in pay, in North Carolina, that pay reduction has to be at least, I believe, 20% pay cut, and it has to be permanent. And that's, I think, probably going to be the big problem, is that the employer is going to respond that it's not been a permanent pay cut. It's just as long as this COVID, shut down economy is in effect. And as the economy reopens, I anticipate increasing hours and therefore increasing pay. So I don't think that a COVID related pay cut is going to be good enough to, if you quit your job, to then have good cause for quitting. The problem in North Carolina is that because North Carolina benefits are they're relatively low compared to other states. And even when you make, say you're working 20 hours a week or 25 hours a week, you may still be making too much money to actually qualify for an unemployment claim. And unfortunately, we don't have a good answer for that. We don't believe you're going to qualify for unemployment if you quit and just say, over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, my hours have just not been high enough. I had to quit, because I don't think you're going to be successful to prove that it was a permanent reduction in your pay. Some states, unfortunately, North Carolina is not one of them, they take into account reduced hours, and people can get paid for 20 or 25 hours. And then they can also get some unemployment based on the 15 or 20 hours that they're not getting. North Carolina does not have such a program. And so folks who have reduced hours, reduced pay, they can certainly apply, but they may get a decision back saying, you're just still making too much money to qualify for an unemployment benefit payment on top of your current wages.
Okay, it looks like this is related to the question you were just answering. I think that may have answered the question. There was a follow-up. The term they use is until further notice. I think that's what the employer was telling them in terms of the time frame for the reduced income.
Yeah, unfortunately, family hardship, those kinds of personal reasons for I can't live on 20 hours a week. Those are not reasons that are going to be recognized by DES as good cause attributable to the employer. That's the buzz phrase for quitting and wanting to get unemployment. And just given the state that we're in, I'm not sure how you're going to get around that permanent requirement in the statute.
All right. If you're called back to work, shouldn't the employee have some type of letter or official documentation for reentry?
No, there's no requirement that the employer has to put anything in writing. Similarly, there's no requirement that if you're terminated from the job, whether just laid off or whether you're fired for some reason, there's no requirement that the employer has to provide any written documentation to hand you when you're being let go or fired. If you're called back to work, you simply respond by showing back up at work and starting to fill out your timesheet. From DES's point of view, it really is like the honor system. Like if you are called back to work Monday, then when you call in your weekly certification and it asks you, have you had any work? Then that's where you then are supposed to report, yes, I've been called back. And then you're supposed to then put in the amount of money that you anticipate you're going to make that week. And then based on the wages that you're going to be making, then DES calculates whether or not you're still going to get an unemployment check for that week. And I think if you've got maybe 2 or 3 weeks in a row where you're reporting wages that kick you out of receiving any type of an unemployment check, I think at that point, then this computer, in a sense, closes your account down, considering you to now be re-employed.
Okay. If I have a combination salon and boutique, am I eligible for PUA?
It sounds as if this is, a self-employment question. And if your income has been substantially reduced, or if, well, I'm sorry, you've been forced to close right now, then yes, you should be one of the people that are to be covered by PUA. If you're self-employed, you own your shop, you're one of those folks that could not get regular unemployment. But PUA is the program now that's designed for you. And again, I can't promise what the application process is going to be like. The law says you simply fill in your application that, my name is, Mary. I operate Mary's Salon and Boutique since, since March 17th with Governor Cooper's shutdown order. My shop has been closed. I've had no income. I used to make, $500 per week. That's what the PUA law seems to say is all you need to do to get an application going and processed. And again, the issues we're having with DES is that they seem to be, requiring more proof of income, proof that you are, Mary who owns Mary's Boutique, and Mary's Boutique is a real business. So to the extent that you've got documents showing, you've got a real shop and you pay rent and you've got customers and these are your bills and invoices, having that information and being able to download it when you put in your application will certainly speed things along.
And John, I assume that's something that if they apply and run into trouble or get turned down, that we could open a file for, right?
Right now, we are. I'm hesitating, Blaine, because it's going to be determined by the type of a decision that comes down about why they're not going to get unemployment. We don't, as legal aid lawyers, we don't have access to like the wage database. So if there are questions about, other wages generating, too much money in the system, you don't qualify. We're not getting into those type of money eligibility questions. If it's, Mary and for Mary's Boutique and she gets a decision, some type of a decision that just says denied, we don't believe you ran this business and we're not going to give you PUA, then yes, that would be the kind of case to call legal aid and put in an application.
Okay, I'm going to put the hotline number back up on the screen for people real quick. Yeah, that way people can have that number if they need it to call into legal aid if you think you may qualify or have an issue that we can help with. All right, I've got a question from Facebook here. In March, my employer furloughed me, gave me a letter, and said I could file for unemployment. He said for me to take an unpaid vacation the next week and to return on April 6th, provided he had funds to pay me. I filed and received unemployment benefits. I've been at this job for 3+ years. I work 30 hours a week. I do not have benefits. I reached my full retirement age in September. I assume that's referring to Social Security. And the question is, let's see, the unpaid vacation the next week and to return on April 6th, provided he had funds to pay. Would this be considered a refusal?
Well, I'm a little reluctant to get into really specific advice about this individual situation. I'm not quite sure. It sounds as if maybe this person did not go back to work on April 6th. And if the only reason that you'd have to then take a look at the reason for why this person didn't go back to work on April 6th. Maybe they want to follow up with a little more information.
It's possible that's too individual or too complex for this format. Unfortunately, we can only answer very general questions in this setting. but I'd encourage you to call the hotline. We may be able to have an attorney talk with you, or potentially there's also the lawyer referral service, which I'll put that number up there, the 1-800-662-7660. All right, we've got a few more questions here. Where would you direct people with disabilities for unemployment assistance?
Well, I'm a little unclear.
Yeah, I don't know if this is someone who was employed or receiving disability. That's all the information I have.
Let me
Where would
just
you
say
direct people with?
generally,
Go ahead.
yeah, thanks, Blaine. Yeah, generally, if you were applying for or receiving any type of disability benefit, whether it was under Medicaid program or the Social Security program, and SSI, then North Carolina law says you do not get unemployment benefits because you're not able to work. That able to work requirement is temporarily suspended for these federal COVID benefits. And so if you were disabled, receiving SSI or Social Security, you had a part-time job on the side, the part-time job is over, you are now able to apply for benefits, and your disability status is not supposed to be any kind of barrier to receiving unemployment. You'd be treated just as if you were not receiving disability benefits. And that application just takes place at the DES website, just like any other application.
All right. Can employer require you sign a rehire document as a condition of being rehired coming off furlough?
It sounds as if there must be something in the rehire document that is troubling to the person asking the question. That might be something where you'd have to set up a specific appointment to find out, like, what's the problem in the documents. I can't imagine it's a simple document that acknowledges, I'm coming back to work on Monday, May the 18th. There's nothing objectionable in that. And perhaps the employer, it might be, that with this Paycheck Protection program where companies have been applying for money, maybe they need to have certain documentation about, on this day, I had this many employees coming back, that I'm using this Paycheck Protection money from Congress to then pay the salaries for these people. That might be a reason why they might want some more official documentation, that on this particular day, I now had this many people back on payroll. If it's simply like a one sentence acknowledgement, then I don't see any problem signing that. If there are other conditions, then that would be something that I think you're going to need to talk to a lawyer about. If there's any workplace safety type issues and concerns that you have, and if there's something in the document that makes it sound like the employer is going to try to get out of providing a safe workplace, then you certainly have some concerns, and that'd be something you should try to talk to a lawyer about before wanting to sign anything like that.
All right. I applied for unemployment due to COVID-19 layoff and have been notified from unemployment that wages were never reported by employer and case has been pending. W-2 and current pay stubs have been submitted and still pending. How do I go about getting benefits?
Yeah, that, unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that question. In normal times, that's just you pick up the phone, you call the 1-888 customer service line, and folks respond and help get that claim set up. When the employer has not reported wages, that actually messes up a claim even in normal times. Because then you have to go and you basically have to set up a hearing and find out if there's an independent contractor versus employee status. The tax, I think the tax department, DES gets involved. I don't know why that person would not automatically just be shifted over to PUA and let DES hash out the wage history and figure out what the proper amount of unemployment should be, and simply go ahead and pay this person the minimum 130 something under PUA, give them the 600 TUC, and have the claim processed. I don't have a good answer. Yeah, I know they've got like a customer service inquiry address, and there's a customer service inquiry form you can fill out. That's all we've been able to suggest to folks, to keep bugging them about what's the status of my claim. Again, these are the types of issues that we are trying to bring up to the attention of the heads of DES, about how people are going to get these kinds of pending claims resolved much more quickly than it's currently happening. So sorry, I don't have a good answer for that one.
I do think that's one where they could call a hotline, though. And we should be able to open a file.
Well,
I've got one here. It's a little disjointed, so I'm not quite sure I completely understand it. I think they're asking if we handle issues related to OSHA whistleblower, somehow related to COVID-19.
no, unfortunately, we've really not been, legal aid's not been involved in alleged, say, retaliation and or wrongful discharge for filing an OSHA claim. That does fall under the retaliation and of an employment discrimination act, RETA. It's a RETA claim, but folks would need to contact private attorney if they believe they've got a OSHA retaliation claim going on.
And I'll put that lawyer referral service phone number back up on the screen for anyone who needs it. If you need to contact a private attorney, the North Carolina Bar Association's lawyer referral service can refer you to an attorney in your area who handles the type of issue that you need help with, and you can get a consultation of 30 minutes for no more than $50. So that's the 1-800-662-7660 number that's up on the screen right now. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in. Wait, just got one more. I don't quite understand the question. It just says, I have religious liberty. So don't know what to do with that. All right, so I thank you all for coming. Thank you, Attorney Keller, for your presentation today. I hope you all found this helpful. The video will be posted on our Facebook page immediately following the clinic if there's anything that you want to rewatch or that you didn't catch. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.
Thanks.